Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Cokerhook. Thank you for being here this evening. And tonight we have a really for me, it's a very interesting and I think an important area of conversation and discussion that has to do with how our veterans are serviced or not serviced when it comes to a certain area of healthcare. And with me to talk about this project called the Dentists Organized for Veterans Project, the DOV Project, is Dr. Angela Bayat. Angela, thank you for coming on Reference Point, and I appreciate your being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I'm super glad that you are, because I think the topic, we had a chance to meet several weeks ago and sit down over coffee, and you were telling me how you got involved, what this project is all about and stuff like that, and it was both fascinating and shocking to me at the same time. And that's what we want to talk about, to give the viewing audience some visibility on this. But before we get into the project, tell me a little bit about you. Now, you're a dentist, and you're here in the San Francisco Bay Area. You have your practice some in East Bay, I
Yes.
think, right?
I have two practices right now currently. One is in Concord, California, and one is in Lafayette, California.
Lafayette, California. Okay, and you've been practicing for how long?
I've been practicing for around 20 years.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
I'm only 29 and a half.
I believe it. Yeah, you look that way.
Thank
you. And I was reading you sent me some information about some of your experiences and background, and how you kind of ended up in dentistry was sort of like not necessarily a planned event?
Not at all. Not at all. Truly, I was going to be a musician.
Well, there you go. No wonder we like each other.
Yes. I thought I was going to be a pianist. Unfortunately, I found out that I wasn't as talented as I wanted to be. I would have liked to be a prodigal pianist. So I chose, at 18, I had a rude awakening, and I chose to go back to sciences.
Okay, cool. And how did you pick dentistry?
Well, I was in Europe, and I was studying actually pharmacy and there. And then I got a call from the American Embassy saying that my green card was ready, and I left everything. I got my green card and I flew to the U.S. And then when I got here, I realized that pharmacy in Europe is very different than pharmacy in the U.S.
Really?
And it is, because pharmacists, you can't even buy, or at least when I was living there close to 30 years ago, you can't even buy Advil over the counter. So you have to really go to a pharmacy. And but here, all the pharmacies are mostly incorporated in grocery stores or like Walgreens and things like that. So I decided that it wasn't in my personality to work for a big corporation like that, and I wanted to be self-employed. I knew I didn't want to be a physician because my brother was one, and I saw how horrible it was for him when his patients died. And I wanted to be in a profession where I didn't have to deal with the death. After pharmacy, dentistry seemed the correct choice.
Well, there you go. And you've been practicing now for, like you said, 20 years.
20 years.
Fantastic. So, as part of that activity, tell us, well, let's do this. Tell us what the DOV Project, Dentists Organized for Veterans, is as an organization, and how you came to create this organization.
Well, Dentists Organized for Veterans, it's a nonprofit organization that provides ongoing, and the important word is ongoing, dental care to veterans who either can't afford to be seen in a private office, or who are not 100% disabled and therefore don't get free dental care from the VA. And so I saw the need. Actually, I think the catalyst for me was when I had an elderly gentleman walk into my office with a broken denture, and he wanted it fixed because he had cancer, and his doctors wanted him to eat better, and he couldn't. So as we got talking, I had to explain to him that unfortunately the denture was not repairable and that he had to get a new one. And when I gave him the cost, in spite of the fact that he had insurance, he told me that he couldn't pay for the copay. And because he was on disability because of his cancer. And then when we got to talking, I realized that he was a veteran. And I asked him, so what about the VA benefits? He told me that because he wasn't 100% disabled through injuries that happened during the time that he was serving, that he did not get dental care. He got medical care, but he did not get dental care. But I just felt that he had put his life on the line for us.
Sure.
And that in return, the least we could do was to help him. So at that time, I helped him, but it stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was the germ. Mm-hmm. And so we started thinking about it. And I talked to my husband about this, and we started thinking how we could create something that would help the veterans.
Got it.
And that's how this all started.
That's how the DOV Project got started. I'm fascinated by this piece of information regarding the fact that the VA does not provide dental care services unless is permanently disabled or something. And I think you had mentioned maybe injury due to battle, a situation or something like that. So if you get a piece of shrapnel in your face, maybe you can get dental care. But so what's the logic behind that?
I'm not quite sure. You know, the VA is a very large government organization, and I'm sure they have their own bureaucracies. I'm not really sure. They have tried in the past to partner with insurance companies and therefore have veterans seek help where this insurance is being provided. Mm-hmm. However, these veterans are sometimes not in a position to even pay for the copay. And insurance is usually not 100% coverage. So they pay for a portion of the treatment. However, the patient will have to still come up with some money. And so it wasn't a possibility for them. And that's why, and then it's not as straightforward as what I'm going to say. However, there seems to be 3 categories in which you can get free dental care at the VA. Okay. Number 1, you either have to be 100% disabled due to injury during service.
So what do they mean by disabled? What constitutes being disabled?
You walk on a IUD.
I mean, but what...
disabled could be like a severe back injury or, you know, losing your legs.
So you can't... So it means that you don't have the ability to earn a living?
Or you don't have the ability to earn a living with what you were trained for. You could potentially teach or something else, but either way, that 100%, it doesn't. You don't have to be completely out of a job, because I know other veterans who are 100% disabled who are doing other jobs like sales jobs.
Sure.
And but they do have 100% coverage for dentistry.
Got it.
Then the third category is you have to be a POW. For instance, John McCain would have received free dental care because he was a free POW. However, nowadays we don't have POWs. Those are the 3 major categories.
So injured, permanently disabled, or have been a POW.
Yes. That means the injury, let's say if you get a shrapnel to your face, or for instance, you fall on your face and you lose some teeth, that is something that is covered by the VA. Okay, got it. So a lot of veterans, and I can understand this because we have a problem that's quite pervasive when you look at the veterans who have come back and they're not 100%
for one reason or another, you know, they've not, maybe it's not physically, maybe it's emotionally, mentally, they've got the what's now called PTSD, and those kind of situations. It's difficult to maintain a job and whatever, and so they can, you see a lot of these men and women who are living on the streets or living in group homes or in Appalachia or someplace where they can live off the land or something, and it's really, it's stunningly upsetting. But I really don't get why the VA doesn't do that. So, all right, but they don't. And so you had this situation where a gentleman came in and had that, and it got you started to thinking. And so what did you do then?
So we started first by seeing the patients in my office, in my private office.
Right.
But there were issues because, first of all, you know, they weren't, especially veterans who may have PTSD, they don't want to be in the same office as a screaming child running around, laughing, or with other patients who may not have their same you know, sensibilities. So being in a private office may become a trigger for, you know, whatever it is that causes or triggers their PTSD. And this I learned by trial and error. And so we got to thinking after 2 years of seeing patients in my office, and at that time we had also applied to become a nonprofit, and so we couldn't really take any kind of donations. So it took about 2 years for the nonprofit to really get created. In that time, I would basically it was only me. No donations, just my office, and we would see the patients in my office. And by trial and error, I realized that really what would be great would be just to have a standalone office where only veterans could be seen. No kids, no goofy pictures, no nothing. Just really, and it create an environment where it would be soothing, yet familiar for these veterans. And over time, we talked to a lot of people, and once the nonprofit was established, we were lucky to meet several key people who helped us, and one of whom was Supervisor Bob Elliott, who put us in touch with Sutter Hospital, and who gave us our first $50,000 to start this clinic.
Got it. So you have a standalone clinic that's specifically targeted for and designed to service the veteran population.
Yes.
Okay, which is kind of a cool thing, and
yes.
and so is it set up any differently than a regular office?
Well, all of my offices are beautiful. However,
of course,
this office is particularly, we had to pay attention to certain things. You know, we have to pay attention to potentially disability that of the veterans. For instance, if they're in a wheelchair or if they can't walk properly. Some of the veterans that I have serviced are old and they walk with walkers or canes. So we had to have a flooring that would be conducive to that wouldn't cause potentially patients to fall.
Slip. Right. Yeah.
Then obviously, like the veterans don't like to have their backs to doors because they feel like they're not in control. So how we rearranged things like that. Loud noises, you know, the colors and the decoration is both soothing, warm, cozy, but yet not potentially jarring to these veterans who feel that they're very comfortable. We provide, you know, all the amenities that we provide for our private patients.
Right.
Basically, what I felt like, it's not fair for people who have money. They go to private dental offices, they pay for their treatment, and they get treated like kings and queens. And people we've sent to the, you know, to the front lines and who've put their lives on the line, I didn't want them to be treated any differently than those patients who had the money.
Just because they didn't necessarily have the cash.
Money, yeah.
Makes
so
sense.
We provide. My goal was to provide the same dental care. So no cutting corners, no just patches. Really, the goal is like if you come to the office and you need an implant, I would provide that same treatment to a veteran, an implant, which is expensive.
And to do that in a way where it's covered by virtue of the foundation. I have a question I want to ask you about the delivery of service, but before I do, I want to let the folks know who are watching this show that if you have any questions about what we're talking about, send those queries into info@referencepointtv.com. I'll get them to Dr. Bayet, and then we can respond to these queries. But so dental work can sometimes, it's having had my own every now and again, you know,
tell me.
It's not necessarily always a comfortable experience.
That's true.
So how do the veterans respond to this, and how do you deal with this situation when they're they're in an environment where they have no control?
True. So we have to create that environment where they don't feel out of control. In my private office, I do sedate people. However, in the nonprofit for the veterans, because of their immense health issues, I just thought that it would be very complicated trying to coordinate with a physician in the VA to see what kind of medications they're being given. And sometimes it's really not possible to sedate these people because it would be dangerous because of their health, their overall health. And so we really have nothing to soothe them except for the knowledge and the bedside manner of the dentist who volunteers. We're all volunteers.
So like local, like Novocaine or something like that?
That we do. We do.
But you can't, you don't give,
we can't give them medication. Yes, we don't give them medications because those things can create other health issues.
They can conflict with some of the other medications that they might be on.
So really bedside manner and making sure that you don't rush through treatment, and that you give them the time to understand what you're doing. Up to now, we've provided $173,000 worth of treatment since we've been in this particular dental office that started the last year. So in the span of 1 year, we've managed to provide that much care.
How many patients does that equate to, approximately?
Maybe 20,
Wow.
20, 25.
Wow.
However, my vision is that's not enough.
Well, no. I mean, you think it's 20, 25 people and the number of veterans. And your clinic is in Tracy,
California.
And, the veteran population out there in the valley is pretty heavy. Have you gotten any kind of support from, there's a number of veterans organizations, the VFW, the what was it?
Foreign War.
Yeah. VFW, Veteran of Foreign Wars, and there's a couple of other ones that I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but the USO and stuff like that. Have any of these other veteran service organizations, do they respond to this? I mean, it seems to make sense that they would, given the public that you're serving.
We haven't had any kind of response from them.
Really?
No. So basically, the majority of the help that we've gotten are from individuals.
Wow.
Really.
Yeah.
My patients and my dental offices who are really excited for the fact that I'm doing this, and just individuals. And one particular individual who is a vet himself, but a very successful businessman also, and who was introduced to us by one of our board members. He is the one who purchased the building for our dental office and the equipment inside it, and he leased it to us, and he gave us some money to be able to function.
Do people in general understand the relationship between dental health and general physical health?
I think maybe nowadays more and more people understand that, but there is research. You know, the American Dental Association has done research, Harvard University has done research, and the other organizations have done research that there is a very important link between general health and oral health. For instance, a pregnant woman who has gum disease, the bacteria is going to travel through her bloodstream into her babies, and it does cause, low birth weight for the child. For instance, if you have, and vice versa. For instance, if you have diabetes and it goes unchecked, it's very damaging to your gums and bone, and also vice versa, meaning that you have to be very careful and make sure maintain your oral health, because that in and of itself will also affect how your diabetes is controlled. Even if you are on medication and you're taking it on a regular basis, if you don't have good oral health, the sugar levels are not going to be controlled.
Interesting.
So there is a link.
So there's a
we understand,
correlation. I would think that folks who have had a veteran in their family, some way, shape, or form, a brother, a sister, a cousin, an uncle, whatever it happens to be, and have seen these challenges. I grew up in the Vietnam era, and I have a cousin who it was hard for him at that time, and I got to believe it's no easier for people who are coming back from these engagements in these days. And when you look at the economic conditions and all that sort of thing, and the challenge with that veterans have to face coming back and trying to find work and whatnot, I would hope that the people who have someone in their family who is suffering some of these challenges would recognize what it is that you're doing here with this and look to provide some kind of support. Maybe it's connections, like you mentioned, the gentleman that you met who helped provide funding for the facilities and whatever. So hopefully the people who are watching this are starting to recognize that, man, this is really a situation. I mean, I had no clue until we met that this was as much of an issue as it is. Are there any statistics that you have pertaining to the number of veterans that may be subject to these kind of situations?
Well, they're saying that we have about 22 million veterans, and one estimate is only a third of them are living at poverty line. However, there are people that say up to 50% of them are living
below the poverty line?
Below the poverty line.
22
million, but 50%
veterans, and so close to 11 million are in a situation, potentially in a situation, and this is all over the country. Are there other organizations like yours? Well,
there are organizations that do intermittent dental care, and they're all very necessary, meaning they do stand-up, for instance, is one of them. You do 1 or 2 days over a weekend in the year where you see everyone. It's not only geared towards veterans, but because you just said a lot of the veterans are homeless, and they hopefully end up getting some treatment. But I don't know, and we've looked at other states too. Some other states, for instance, in Arizona, I believe that they are, basically dentists themselves, they provide less expensive dental treatments that they advertise. But when you have a population that can't even pay for gas money, because there have been times when we've patients have had to cancel because they couldn't get there.
Yeah.
So you can't expect them to have money to even pay for that lower cost dental treatment.
Right.
And you said something prior about how we have all these people coming back, and you hit the nail on the head, because really the major goal, and we can elaborate on this further, but the major goal is to reintegrate, help these individuals who come back from war where they're no longer warriors and they're coming back, they don't feel civilian yet, and give them a little bit of help to be able to reintegrate into the society and be successful and continue their life.
And I have seen it myself. I know what if someone has a dental problem, how that impacts their self-image. And if you've got a self-image situation and your PTSD and you come back and you're trying to get a job and all those things fit into a dwindling spiral.
That's true.
We only have another couple of minutes before the end of the show, Dr. Bayat. So I want to thank you for being here. But I wanted to ask, is there any other, how can people help? How can the common guy and gal help in this effort? Because this to me is one of those things that is unless and until the VA decides to give free dental care to everybody, all the veterans.
Which we're hoping.
But it ain't there yet. We got to find a way to help these people. So how can people help? So
I'll go a little further back, and this is what I want to explain. The reason that my husband and I thought that we would be successful in this nonprofit is that we use the same system that we use for a profit organization, meaning really minimal waste and be very successful. So the same criteria we implemented in the nonprofit. So we're lay people. We've never dealt with nonprofits, and therefore our criteria was only a successful for-profit office. So really the most important thing that will help us is money. And anyone who donates or can donate, even a little bit, should know that the money is not going to be wasted because it goes to operations, really. Right. The dentists don't get paid, although I have to say that staff has to get paid because the staff, they can't necessarily afford to work for free. The dentist can offer their time and knowledge.
But you have to have other staff to keep the lights on, to do the administration and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Well, Dr. Bayat, thank you for being here. We've run out of time for our show today, and I very much appreciate your being here. And so, ladies and gentlemen, kindly think about this. Go on their website. Is it DOVproject.org, www.dovproject.org. They have a Facebook page as well. Look them up, The Dove Project. And think about this and see if you can support them. So, Dr. Bayat, thank you so much for being here. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time on Reference Point.